Good evening. Welcome to The View Up Here. I'm your host, Canadian Glenn, and it is February 22nd, 2017. Tonight, a View Up Here global episode, FreeMartyG, with Dana Gottesfeld. Who is Dana? Dana is the wife of Martin Gottesfeld, a human rights advocate, a senior systems engineer, born and raised in Andover, Massachusetts. Marty was arrested on February 16th, 2016, and is being prosecuted under the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act by everyone's least favorite U.S. federal prosecutor, Carmen Ortiz. Marty faces allegations that he conspired with members of Anonymous to organize an online sit-in of the Boston Children's Hospital public website, which in no way harmed patients or exposed any private information. But at that time that happened, an international campaign was underway to stop the torture and save the life of 15-year-old Justina Pelletier, who was admitted to BCH a year earlier for treatment of her mitochondrial disease. When the Pelletier family wanted to transfer Justina to another facility, Boston Children's Hospital pulled what is known as a parentectomy, and Justina was made a ward of the state, and it began a 16-month cycle of neglect, mistreatment, transfers, and isolation. After the global negative publicity of this abduction by the Boston Children's Hospital, of which there is a history of them doing this, Justina is back with her family, and they're suing BCH in a civil action for negligence of care and conspiracy to remove custody. Now Marty's dedicated years of his life fighting for the rights of institutionalized children. He's never profited from his activism in any form. Marty's family and friends have launched the FreeMartyG campaign to set the record straight and to call on the public to show their support for him and his work. And his wife, Dana Gottesfeld, will join us now to discuss Marty's work, his prosecution, and the efforts to free him. Good evening, Dana. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Glenn. Thank you for having me.
It is my pleasure. Welcome to the View Up Here. I just went over just the scantest of backgrounds. I mean, there are a lot of listeners that will be familiar with Marty and this case, and certainly Ms. Ortiz. But where should we start the story?
Well, first I just wanted to say I've taken, I love your Canadian accent. It's so cute. I just don't know that many Canadian people, so it's always like a delight to hear it. We can start in so many different places. I think you gave a pretty good overview about the arc of the story, from just kind of like an unknown systems engineer living, just doing his own thing, to someone who's fought this like long battle for against child abuse, and now has like spent a year behind bars. Now he's back in Massachusetts. Some of, I guess, like one of the central things is kind of like the human rights violations that are going on against children. It's especially heinous when, like, crimes against anyone are bad, but, like, when it's kids, it's just so much worse. Marty frequently says that he has it better in federal prison than Justina did at Boston Children's Hospital, and that's always pretty striking about, like, what we tolerate for kids in this country.
Yes. Well, I mean, you know, the other side to this that I hope everybody's aware of is Justina was also transferred out of BCH to a for-profit center, and I know this has really been something that Marty's been interested in for years. I know he was also involved with bringing the ridiculous situation of Logan River Academy to the public view.
Yeah. Where like I think that's where his heart lies in terms of activism. Is like fighting this these private institutions that are claim that they're supposed to help kids, but really they're just for profit. So they try to cut corners and profit as much as they can off of, unfortunately, the well-being of children. I was just looking today. Logan River was sold to a new management board. So it just keeps changing hands. It just keeps changing staff, but the program stays the same. Yeah.
And it's public money. And it's public money that pays for the internment of these children too, right?
It's a combination. In some states, the school district will pay for children to go there, especially if they don't have inclusive education in their state. Like in California, for example, they tend to send kids away rather than kids that can't like participate in the classroom, rather than get them help within the classroom. But there's also a lot of parents that tap into their retirement and savings in order to send their kids there. They're told that it's like a last resort or last reserve, and they're willing to do it if they think it helps their kids. Unfortunately, it doesn't, though.
Indeed. So I know that Marty has written about that word parentectomy.
Mm-hmm.
And there's not a lot of people that are really familiar with that. Maybe the actual event of it, but not the term. Now, Boston Children's Hospital has a record of this, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
So
that's a... Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, parentectomy is a term that they used at Boston Children's Hospital. It denotes the separation of the parents from the children. So some places call it medical kidnap. But Boston Children's Hospital, it's been called a parentectomy, and kind of like a little tongue-in-cheek about the separation of the family. It's happened so often that unfortunately it needs a name. There's this article called one of the best hospitals in the country are accused of doing, I forget what the end of it is, like the same bad thing over and over. And it just talks about a history of some of the families they found where the hospitals tried to separate parents from their children, with kind of a similar story to Justina, telling them that it's a symptom of like stress, anxiety, rather than their physical disease. So Marty's written a book. Marty's been really busy in prison. He's written books that we split into 2 books because it was too long for one book. And he's written articles and a lot of tweets that I haven't even put onto social media yet. But it's a pretty comprehensive story of how he got started in activism and what kinds of things we've been finding going on.
So the whole idea of this parentectomy, like if I understand this right, was Justina Pelletier, her parents weren't happy with the treatment she was getting at BCH, and they wanted to transfer her to her regular specialist and take her to another facility. And that is when Boston Children's Hospital started this parentectomy. Is that correct?
Yeah, it started when the parents decided they were no longer interested in pursuing the treatment that Boston Children's Hospital was suggesting. It kind of split ways with their normal course of treatment that they'd been doing for years. So at first they were kind of interested, and they said, like, we'll give this a shot. And then when they saw that their daughter wasn't improving, and in fact she was getting worse, they said, maybe we'll go back to our old doctor now, back to what we're used to. And the hospital said, we won't let you leave. We won't let you get a second opinion. They actually, a document has surfaced online, their treatment guidelines for Justina, and it says don't let any other doctors see her, not even other doctors at Boston Children's Hospital. She can only be seen by the team that was working with her. So her parents were pretty frightened and confused why a second opinion would hurt their daughter. And when they said, like, thank you anyways, but we're out, the hospital brought in police and blocked them at the door. The Pelletiers have posted video footage of this. And it's not, since I've gotten started with, like, meeting a lot of people, it's not the first time that I've heard that police, or I should say hired guns or whatever, stand in the way to separate parents from their children on behalf of the hospital.
That seems very, very strong-arm tactics. Yeah, strong-arm tactics. I mean, being in Canada, the medical system's a little different up here. I thought in the United States, I mean, if you refused treatment or wanted to leave or anything like that, there's absolutely nothing that could stop that. But do you think this was just because of the money involved with the treatment of Justina? Is that why they did this?
I haven't read any investigative reports, like any serious journalism that has really gotten to the core of the issue. I think there's a lot of ideas about what's going on. I've spoken to some lawyers, to some advocates, some of my own thoughts. It seems that there is a profit incentive. BuzzFeed came out with an article about United Health Services, which is a chain of psych wards, and just talked about the overcrowding and how they tricked people into signing paperwork. They told them that it was like a free evaluation, and then they ended up locking the person in the psych ward. And I'm sorry, what I'm trying to say is yes, when you don't separate profit from the necessity of healthcare, you have disaligned motives. Not just Justina, but in other cases like her, in the case of Chelsea Cruz and Elizabeth Ray, We see that this tends to happen. It's not exclusively. This isn't the only profile, but it tends to happen to people from out of state that are coming in to visit and have health insurance. They don't something that they can latch on to. When the health insurance runs out, they're more inclined to let the kid go. And it kind of becomes a revolving door. The psych ward kind of needs a reason to stay open, to keep things moving. They have a certain amount of beds, and they don't want to keep them empty. Like, ultimately, it makes money. It's just so weird because the hospital has such a great reputation, and they've done so much in so many different areas, but this psych ward is so rogue. It's called Fader 5, and it's just off the charts. It doesn't really interact with the rest of the hospital. It's just really separated. But ultimately, the hospital defends them and says, they're part of us and we'll stand up for them. So it is really a hospital-wide issue once they decide to stand up for them rather than make changes within it.
Yeah, to me, that sounds very, the focus is wrong, completely wrong. But, Justina has had mitochondrial disease prior to this entire situation, and her treatment was well known. There should be no problem in knowing what should be done for that. But yet, at BCH, they denied medications to her. They decided that, she doesn't need that anymore. And all this did is result in her getting worse under their care. So then, did they use that as leverage to say, there's no way we can let her go because, she's in rough shape, when they in fact caused that deterioration? Is that an accurate description?
With the medical diagnosis, one could always say, she was sick anyways. What did you expect? You brought her to a hospital. So that's definitely something that they could say, but it's clear that when she was under her parents' care, getting proper treatment under best guidelines for mitochondrial disease, to be honest, mitochondrial disease is not terribly well studied, so people are doing the best they can with what they know, but even under those conditions, she was a figure skater. Without those things, she became permanently wheelchair bound. Her condition did start to degenerate, and it was really hard for her family to watch. There's a lot of pictures online where you can see her hair receding, really deep grooves in her forehead, like the way a man's hair is split, back near her temples. And you can just see how she's not doing well. Mitochondrial disease is a metabolic disease where her body just can't function. It can't create the energy it needs. So there's a lot of symptoms, and there's no cure for it. The only thing you can do is manage the symptoms and try to delay the progression of the disease. And without that kind of intervention, we saw how quickly she went from a figure skater to permanently wheelchair bound. She's still trying to recover, and at the time there was a lot of confusion, or maybe not a lot, but there could have been disputable confusion. Is this a custody dispute? Is she who's right? Is the parents or the hospital right? But now that it's long over and we can look back with 2020, the hospital is clearly clearly pursued something that that wasn't based in fact, was in violation of her human rights, and now they're paying the consequences. They're being sued by her family and 6 others, and they're all alleging similar actions in terms of stripping children of their rights. Boston Children's Hospital will, if this lawsuit goes forward, have to pay amends. I mean, it's civil, not criminal, which it should be what they did to her, but it's going to set precedent in terms of what families can ask, or what families can hold hospitals responsible for.
I mean, I'm taking a look at the stuff that you've written that was on HuffPo, and I'm just reading here that Justina's mistreatment at BCH and the simultaneous marked decline in her health began when an unlicensed resident, 7 months out of medical training, and a non-MD psychologist challenged her mitochondrial disease diagnosis and therapies. So these guys were saying, no, she doesn't even have that. I mean, that seems extremely off the wall. But yet, and they said that the symptoms were psychosomatic. There was nothing wrong with her physically. But yet, she continued to deteriorate physically. I mean, it just seems to make absolutely no sense to me how they could stick to this. And that was indeed what caused the parentectomy, is it not? I mean, the parents were just like, no, you guys are nuts. This isn't what's going on. And then they turned to saying that it was the parents that had given her these psychosomatic problems. So they tried to paint it that her parents were the actual cause of what they were saying her true medical issue was. Is that pretty much how they played this out?
Yeah. Initially, when they tried to take custody of Justina away from her parents, they told the court that her parents were doing Munchausen by proxy, which is making her sick on purpose so that they could take care of her. It's kind of, it was a ploy to get the judge to grant custody to the state and to the hospital. As soon as they got her released, they dropped any mention of it. It was never brought up or pursued in any way. It was just to get them, just to get the custody that they wanted. Psychosomatic disorder is, it's where biological symptoms are caused by stress or anxiety. So there might not be like a physical root to the problem, but it's kind of like a holistic, like a person is, the mind-body connection kind of takes over the body. Now, it's not that that's definitely not what she had. It's that they tried it. It wasn't what she had, and they continued to pursue it. There's definitely no shame in trying different things, trying to find the best solution. That's scientific method, like 101. But to keep pursuing something once you see that she's deteriorating is when it's less defensible. They didn't adapt or try to do better. They stuck their heels in. Now, the non-MD psychologist, her name is Dr. Simona Bajorno, and I was checking her out on NCBI, the National Database for Scientific Literature, and she, her area of focus is psychosomatic disorder. She's written many papers over in the 2000s, starting in the, I believe it's the 2000s, about psychosomatic disorder and studying children with it. So it makes sense that she would diagnose Justina with that. It's actually really interesting that that's literally her focus, and what a conflict of interest that she gets to diagnose the children and then study them. There's definitely no separation of peer review there. It's a really hard story to just comprehend that's going on. I feel like people always have a hard time believing that this is true, other than the fact that it actually happens. The laws in the United States are not protecting children. After Justina's case, her family tried to work with lawmakers to pass something called Justina's Law, and that would protect kids from wards of the state from having unwanted medical testing done on them once they become a ward of the state, even if it doesn't provide them any benefit. So the fact that that's not like even a thing right now, like once you become a ward of the state, you can be subjected to trials against your will, like that's happening. The state of what we're letting happen to kids is really uncontrollable, and sometimes, rarely, but sometimes cases like Justina's rise to public consciousness, and we get to take a look inside of some of this like really scary stuff that's going on.
Yeah, I mean, just hearing that, I mean, so we have a clinical psychologist who basically gets tenure and privilege at hospitals based on her body of work through research papers, and yet she's allowed to basically manufacture her own subjects for these papers. Yeah, that sounds a bit not above board to me, absolutely. And I imagine there are federal research grants involved, and that is the focus of Justina's Law, right?
Yes, there is federal research grants in studying these kinds of diseases. And Justina's Law is to protect children that are become wards of the state from having unwanted medical tests done on them that provides little to no benefit to them. Kind of like involuntary enrollment, kind of protecting kids against involuntary enrollment in trials that they don't want to be in. Because right now, once you become a ward of the state, you can't really say no. And that's kind of one of the things that happens. Like, her parents were fighting so hard to get her back, but once the state took custody, she really, if her guardian ad litem doesn't stand up for her, nobody will. And the guardian ad litem wasn't going to stand up for her. I think the story of what happened to her is so big, and it's hard really to know, once you start getting disagreements by medical professionals. If you're not a doctor, it's maybe a little harder to come to an objective decision when you hear a disagreement between doctors. A lot of doctors came down against Boston Children's Hospital. In fact, I don't know any doctors that stood up for what they did to her, other than the doctors that did it and the hospital that's defending it. But all of her previous doctors thought it was really outlandish. But I think, in my opinion, one of like the worst things is just the human rights violations. That part of her disease is that she has a lot of pain. She's not able to go to the bathroom without a cecostomy tube, and she has very intense pain in her nerves, and she needs her Lyrica, or it's like a thing like Lyrica that would numb the end of her nerves. So basically, this is a girl who was taken away from her family, who can't go to the bathroom, who's in constant pain, and just around uncaring people who would leave her like that. So she just endured, like, while all this stuff was going on outside of her control in terms of custody and what she could be used for and what, et cetera, et cetera. Like, she was suffering this whole time. And that's like, I think that's the worst part, the emotional and physical suffering of an innocent child.
Well, I just want to give a little more background on Justina's law. Introduced by House Representatives Karen Bass, Democrat, California, Tom Marino, Republican, Pennsylvania, and Jim McDermott, Democrat, Washington. And they are the co-chairs of the Foster Youth Caucus. And the legislation would prohibit federal funding for medical experimentation on any ward of the state. And that sounds to me like a damn good idea because, you know, as you explained, Dana, these people are wards of the state. They have basically no legal standing. So they are at the mercy of, as you said, their guardian, their ward. And we know what kind of circles money makes. This sounds like a law that needs to happen, in my opinion. Definitely.
Oh yeah, I think that you can provide a really nice contrast. What's it like in Canada? What's it like to not have money be a profit in healthcare? I don't think I can even imagine how different that would be. Is it great?
Well,
or does it
the biggest difference is you're not looking at a huge expense personally if you get in an accident or if you have a stroke or a heart attack or anything like that. But the issue is, for a lot of stuff, there are very long waiting lists.
Yeah.
You know, if you want a hip replacement, if you want some sort of corrective orthopedic surgery, if you screwed up your knee playing baseball on the weekend, you may have to live with it for a while until you can get fit in. And I mean, that's one of the biggest difference. You know, in the U.S., if you've got money, you go to the front of the line. But, you know, I mean, for the most part, we understand that, and we lean on our governments to alleviate those waiting lists. The other big difference is what the Pelletiers are doing in the U.S. now with their lawsuit. In Canada, you can't do that. You are not allowed to you're not allowed to sue for malpractice, is what it comes down to. And that's a big difference. That is a big difference. I mean, if you could sue for malpractice, I would probably have my orthopedic surgeon in court now because they had to reconstruct my femur a second time, and it's cost me an extra year. And it's cost me an extra year of my life, but I also didn't get a bill for $65,000. So, you know, it kind of, there's give and take, I guess.
Yeah.
We're happy with what we have. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Wow. So what do you guys do if something like this were to happen? If you would have found gross negligence, or is that just something that wouldn't have happened in the first place?
Well, something like this in Canada, you would have to go directly to the government. There would be, because everywhere in Canada, there is some private industry involved in the administration of hospitals and care centers and the delivery of care, but the billing is all standardized. It's single payer. All the money is public that is paying, and because of that, there are standards, and they are, as far as I know, a fair amount higher than the minimum standards in most states in the U.S., but again, it's enforcement. And just like in the U.S., doctors and other medical professionals have their colleges and their associations. They circle the wagons better than anybody else out there. And the lawyers, same thing. So it's not an easy process to get changes made and get people to pay for what they've done wrong. But it does happen. It usually takes years. And if there's a death involved, then, that's an issue that the government has to live with. Not necessarily a HMO or a hospital board of directors. So there's an elevation of the cost of huge mistakes in Canada, and that's the way we like it. We all pay the government to pay for our health care, so they better keep an eye on it. If you ask most Canadians, are they doing a very good job of it? No, but we're spoiled. Compared to, say, most of the United States, we're doing a damn good job. But, there's just differences overall. But, as far as what happened to Justina with this facility, the Boston Children's Hospital just saying, well, we just don't believe that all these files from, her previous specialist, we just don't believe that's what's happening. And for them to stop her painkillers, to stop her heart medication, which made her tachycardic, to say that she was a danger to herself, well, if you take a teenager and you submit them to constant pain, do you not think that they will become a little more agitated, a little more not normal behavior pattern? Well, of course, that would happen with anybody. But for, I just can't comprehend these people who are supposedly took the Hippocratic Oath, encouraging these symptoms, these behaviors, and then saying, see, we're right, look. That's obscene. And I can understand why Marty was motivated to act. It seems clear to me. Who the hell wouldn't?
Yeah. It was becoming more and more clear that down this path, she wasn't going to make it. Her father had publicly stated that he's fighting for her life, and her sister had told the media that the hospital had told Justina that she was never going to leave. She would never get out of there. She would die in there. So it was starting to become like if this was a physical thing, like if they were in an alley, it would be someone was assaulting her, and Marty stepped in to save her, defense of another. It's a little more abstract because she was locked in a hospital psych ward, but I think the principles are the same. Defense of another is kind of like a proud American tradition. We take defending others, especially from bodily harm or, in this case, government intervention, very seriously, and we always have. So I don't think Marty's ashamed or not proud in any way of saving her life. I forget exactly how long it was, but a short while later, Justina was released. Not to say that it was any one particular effort or something like that, but more like the combination of a lot of hard work. But it didn't come long after Marty got involved.
Well,
Yeah.
well, I'm just reading through the article here, and it was 11 months in BCH. Then they discharged her to a treatment center, and it just continued there with the poor treatment, the denial of medication, the denial of treatment, and Boston Children's Hospital got a gag order against her parents. And it was her father that broke that gag order, and that's when he said that her life was in danger. And I think that was the beginning, really, wasn't it, of the public saying, hey, wait a minute, what the hell is this? And is that where Anonymous became involved? And is that what got Marty's attention at about this same time too?
I couldn't say for sure. I'm not exactly sure, but I know that her case had been gaining momentum before that. Her family had been pretty vocal, and they were working with the director of the Christian Defense Coalition, Patrick Mahoney, trying to get the governor to pay attention and to intervene, but ultimately he wouldn't. I'm not sure about the details of all of the answers to all of the parts of the question that you asked. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah. But yeah, there's a lot of people trying to get involved to help her because of what's going on. Can you hear me okay? I'm just changing my phone for a second. Okay, great. Okay.
I mean, the one other thing I would add here is in the the testimony that did come out about her time at BCH is there is a registered nurse named Katie Higgins who said it would be far more accurate to call the treatment forced on Justina by its more proper term, torture.
Mm-hmm.
And that is from a licensed medical professional whose job is patient care. So do you think that when they finally did release Justina back to her parents, was this kind of a damage control more than them really accepting that they had done damage to her? Was it more for their own benefit than for Justina's benefit? Or we won't know that until the case goes through court?
I don't think that they wanted to release her. I think it was just becoming untenable. I think that the pressure was mounting and becoming something that they couldn't deal with anymore. Ultimately, they claimed that they took her away because she wasn't safe with her parents. There wasn't the best environment for her. But they never did any investigation into her parents' home before they took her. And they just put her back in the same environment. So it's not, if that was like the real concern, then you would think that they would do something other than the reason that they took her away. But she was fine before, and she's fine now. She's trying to go into get different therapies and recuperate from the trauma, and just trying to get her life back together now that she's lost all movement below her hips. But yeah, as I said, now that we're in retrospect and we can see like what happened, it was never about the issues. It was never about what was doing best for her, because if it was, they would have investigated her family, like visited their house or made sure that she'd go back to them. But like all of the, like they didn't even like put in the legwork to make it look like they weren't, like to make it look like they were above board. They just took her. They gave her back after her family put up too much of a fight, and I'm sure they're going after easier victims, people that are fighting back less hard. And so I think it'll be really interesting to see how the lawsuit turns out. See them finally being held to account for what they've done to children. Usually these types of things take a couple of years. It'll be 1 year since they announced the lawsuit coming up in the next few months. I think in March, actually. But really interesting to see how other families will utilize the outcomes of this, because up till now, children really haven't been able to hold psych wards accountable.
Yeah. Well, I imagine also if there is a decent precedent set in this, depending on what state you're in the U.S., this could open the door for class action as well. So,
oh yeah,
maybe this is the first step of this entire industry being put on notice. And if Justina's law can get through the House, then that will remove the federal money as well. Well, you know, it's unfortunate that there's always a tragedy that brings any kind of change. Seems to be the only way we get change. But, you know, perhaps the ball is rolling on this one, and it will get better slowly. I hope.
Yeah, definitely. Me too. I met a lot of people since this has all started who have also had their kids taken away from them. Kind of similar to Justina. They went to the hospital thinking they were going there for help, and they were blindsided when they tried to leave, and the hospital took their kids. And it's a story that's just getting told too often. I think it just rarely gets talked about the way Justina's was, but that's not representative of the consistent stories in different states as well.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Well, that's the motivation for what caused Marty to act, and I certainly understand it. And I'm not too sure I wouldn't do the same thing, being inside on that and talking to the Pelletiers and seeing what was going on. Seems to me that, you know, obviously they weren't going to listen to reason at the BCH, and apparently nobody in the government was going to do much about it.
Yeah,
so,
at Marty's detention hearing, the special agent said on the stand that he was they were aware of what was happening to Justina at Boston Children's, or they're aware of what's happening there, and Justina's family had gone to the FBI as well when this was happening. The government really doesn't like Marty's case because they have to defend a pretty indefensible situation. Like, they're taking the side of the hospital who's doing this to kids as opposed to a human rights activist who's trying to save kids from this. It's actually pretty embarrassing from how do you explain that how do you explain that you're letting this happen to kids, and when someone tries to stop it, someone tries to protect the kids, you make sure that the kids can continue to be oppressed, continue to be hurt, and what you're really trying to stop is anyone who's trying to help them. It looks really bad, and they're familiar with that. They've taken some steps. When they did the indictment, they made sure it was on one of the days of the presidential debate. They did it without a press release, even though when he was arrested and such, they made sure there was a press release, even though they put wrong information in it. They know, they understand, and this is also the U.S. Attorney's Office. This is Carmen Ortiz. This is 3 years after Aaron Swartz. Same prosecutor, same Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. They have a bad history, and they're continuing to take unpopular positions. And people have not forgotten Aaron. Unfortunately, maybe a little more than they should have, but I think he's still remembered.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, especially listeners of my show, especially even some people in the chat room, know all about the CFAA and how it's being abused with no consequence by prosecutors with ambition. And Carmen Ortiz is at the top of that list. Carmen Ortiz will live in infamy from the Aaron Swartz case forever, deservedly so in my opinion. Before the digital sit-in, Marty did something that really got the ball rolling, especially on Boston Children's Hospital. And it had to do with a video that he posted to YouTube. And that really, I'm sure you'll admit, that really got a lot of attention out of nowhere on this issue. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think it got 20 or 25,000 views or something. I forget the exact number. I think that the video was posted from Anonymous, and it said, "Let Justina go. What you're doing to her is wrong." And I think it echoed a lot of Anonymous sentiment that they stand up for the weak, and they won't let the torture of children happen in a vacuum. The people are paying attention. A lot of the virtues that Anonymous stands or perhaps stood for, given everything that's been going on. And it also, now this is some of the discrepancy that I mentioned earlier about putting out the misleading press, about the government putting out a misleading press release when Marty was arrested. They said that the videos called for an attack, and as did the criminal complaint. But if you watch the video, it doesn't call for any kind of attack. And I think that if the media doesn't watch the video themselves, if they just read a press release from the government, then that's kind of all they need to write a story. And so you can see in the initial write-ups about Marty, the language that they chose is very reflective and in line with what fits the government narrative best. I'd been following the press release because obviously this is an important thing to me. And I noticed that they had made changes on it. They broke the links to the original after a while, created a new press release, and then reconstructed the original press release and got rid of that intermediary one. And they never made any changes on it that they acknowledged there was any changes to it. But they got rid of the language that accused him of calling for an attack or anything, and they just scrapped it. But the damage, they already got to plant the seeds that they wanted to in the media. These people are, could it have been an accident? It's a very accident. I don't think they would make an accident in the opposite direction. It's very tactical for them. And that's kind of the type of people that we're dealing with. This isn't about justice. This isn't about doing what's right. This is about getting what you want. And even when that means children are hurt or you're putting notches in your belt above what's best for victims and society, and you're willing to ruin people's lives over it. Marty is facing up to 25 years in prison. The doctors that hurt Justina continue to practice. Like, that's the juxtaposition we're looking at here. Like, this is totally upside down on every front. And then, like we were talking about with Justina, like, it just doesn't make sense that this could happen. Picture than that. It doesn't make sense that, given what happened to Justina, that Marty could face 25 years. Most people, when they're threatened with the CFAA, computer fraud and abuse, the penalties are so high. You get like 10 years. Marty is facing 3 charges. One is 10 years, one is 10 years, and one is 5 years.
Yes.
And there's no Computer Fraud and Abuse Act that is not a felony. So like this is, felonies are like murders. You know what I mean? Like, that's what anyone that uses a computer is facing, felonies, not misdemeanors. This is permanent record stuff. And it makes a lot of sense why we see so many people not want to. They either take a deal or they look for something else, because like that's what the prosecution does. They scare the shit out of you with like ridiculously high sentences. And I don't know anybody else that's, you can tell me if I'm wrong, maybe someone in the chat room can speak up, but I don't know anybody else that says, I'm going to fight the CFAA. Everybody gets scared into taking a deal. And that's really unique about Marty's case. Everybody takes a deal because they're scared. Like, 25 years is incomprehensible. And I think sometimes some people just say, like, you want to fight? Let's go. So this is going to be an interesting case. One of the bad things, though, is that they're not even going to let Justina on the stand. They're not going to let what happened at Boston Children's into the courtroom. So this is really just like going to be a sham of a trial in the way that, like, that's a really important part of this story. And to like leave Justina out of what happened is like incredibly
ridiculous.
Misinformative. Yeah, no, it makes no sense. And so that's kind of one of the reasons that we really want to talk about this beforehand and make sure people understand beforehand, because they will try to exclude it from the trial. So, like, this isn't real justice. This isn't a real trial. This is, the government's just going to do whatever they can to, like, make sure Marty's story is squashed.
Well, I mean, I think about that, and it kind of makes it sound like we're going to charge someone with a murder, but we're not going to say anything about who the victim was. I mean, it's kind of the same illogic. You know, they want to charge Marty under CFAA for an invisible crime, in my opinion. And the reason he did it, the motivation, the criminal acts that the Boston Children's Hospital did that brought on this action are not important. You know, this is the way they intend to play this out. And that's got nothing to do with justice, in my opinion. You know, that's just lunacy. That's it's over aggressive.
Justice vote so long ago. Yeah.
Over aggressive prosecution for, I mean, they've lost focus completely about what this is even about.
I mean, honestly, just like get those doctors out of there. Like, it's just such insult to injury that after all this, after all the sacrifice and everything we've seen, like those same doctors are still there. They're still able to work with kids. I don't know how many kids' lives have to be ruined until until Adam Bookbinder, Marty's prosecutor, if he ever has kids, if he ever would, and say like, oh shit, like maybe I don't want my kids there, you know. Maybe it needs, maybe you need somebody who's a father. Maybe you need somebody who has children and can relate and can empathize with what the kids are going through to see a difference. I mean, if you're just uncaring and it's just about notches in your belt, then what's the difference, right? Just throw more people behind bars if it makes you look better. And that's kind of, I mean, just based on what we're seeing, that's kind of what it's coming down to. Like, they're making no motions to get the real people who've been hurting kids behind bars. For Justina to suffer for 16 months, for her to feel her nerves on fire, for her to not be able to use the bathroom for 16 months, like, that's a crime.
Well, I mean, another issue here that really gets me is the whole premise of the case against Marty is the same old crap we hear about DDoS all the time, about how it costed the, whatever it is, the corporation, whatever, in this case, the hospital, it cost them money. It put their business at risk. This is the same old story we get, but it is federal law that an organization like a hospital, to be accredited, they have to be able to function during online outages. And that means, you know, a complete power failure, no communication systems work, all this sort of stuff. To get their accreditation to be a hospital, they're supposed to be able to pass standards that they can function without that stuff. And yet this entire case is based on, oh, our website went down. We couldn't do anything. That's a complete paradox. How is this even getting into court based on this? It's a lie.
Yeah, well,
you know?
The hospital, that's definitely one of the things. The hospital was inconvenienced. Some of their donation portal went down, and they took some other parts of their network down as a precaution, and in that way, some of the normal daily functions were compromised from a precaution standpoint. But yeah, nothing critical was hurt. No patient files were accessed. No critical infrastructure was compromised, or nothing like that. There was no ransomware. Where they get the damages number from is the cost of having network administrators watch the site to make sure nothing else happened to it. I know that because the government, I saw the damages report, and the government won't let Marty or anybody have a copy of that report without the lawyer standing there. So basically, like, the number, the $380,000 that they want to pay in restitution, which is also informs how long he would have to stay in prison is based on the salaries of IT people. That's where the damage comes from. Those are the figures. And it's really convenient that the government says you can't show this to anybody. It's like this is not justice. This is not an equal playing field. This is they get to dictate the narrative. They get to withhold information, allow information to be withheld, go after whistleblower types rather than the people who are guilty of what the whistle needs to be blown on. Like, this is so far from what justice looks like. I mean, I'm sure I'm not the first person to feel this way, but it's so frustrating. Like, sometimes it's like it feels like a Twilight Zone. Like, what happened to doing the right thing, you know?
Well, I mean, the way I look at it, okay, so there was a dedicated denial of service. It caused their donation portal to be unavailable. It caused a certain amount of regular website pages to be unavailable. No information was exposed. Nobody was injured in any form. There was no permanent damage, physical damage to any of their systems, and yet for that they seek 25 years and $380,000 from Marty. But what if their own provider went offline for 3 hours?
They do.
They wouldn't be
it's called scheduled maintenance. It happens. It happens frequently.
But even if a server nuked, if a server burned up and they went down, would they be demanding $380,000 from their own hosting company? Somehow, I doubt it. And the FBI would not be called, you know? I mean, this is the thing that really burns my ass. The Boston FBI, the Boston U.S. Attorney's Office, they're not interested in what happened to Justina. They're only interested about the Boston Children's Hospital lost the full use of their website for 3 hours. This is what their interest is, not what happened to Justina.
Yeah, I don't know how long it was exactly, but yeah. Well, Boston Children's Hospital is part of the Harvard Teaching Hospital. It's a Harvard Teaching Hospital. So these are big foundational institutions. And once big money is involved, the FBI goes running. If it's kids or small people that don't have a lot of firepower behind them, I don't think the FBI really gives a shit, as we can tell. But when Harvard is inconvenienced, when Harvard's website goes down, it's all hands on deck. Everybody is mobilized. I think that's just the distribution of power. And I think we saw some of that with MIT as well, with Aaron. Like just such a disproportionate reaction. I don't know exactly what Aaron was looking at, but it was like 35 years and $1 million in restitution, and like it's definitely becomes a David and Goliath type power struggle.
Well, I mean, this has been something that I've seen time and time again when they prosecute for denial of service attacks, so-called attacks in the United States, there's absolutely no onus. I mean, Marty wrote about being a systems engineer. He looked at their architecture and it was stupid. It could be much improved, but this is the way they chose to run their website services. So he knew how to disrupt them, but yet at the end of the day, they're the ones with the shitty system. They don't spend the money to fix it, to improve it. In the United States, the only way that they keep from faulty systems owned by corporations with more than enough money is to overly punish the people who expose those weaknesses. And in Europe, that doesn't happen. In Europe, something like this is house arrest, a couple months, and the corporation who got hit fixes their shitty system. But in the U.S., it's the absolute opposite. It's like, okay, our weaknesses have been exposed. We don't want to spend the money. So we're going to ruin a life because we were exposed. That's the difference that I see with the CFAA. And that's obscene, you know? I mean, PayPal 13, PayPal 14, this goes on and on. And these corporations make these grandiose claims about their damages. It didn't cause you any damage. The only damage it causes, you look like idiots because you have all this money and you can't set up a proper system.
Right. Totally.
You know, it's ridiculous that that's the way it works. But as you said, I was not aware that BCH was part of the Harvard medical umbrella. Yes, that, yeah, that changes everything. Indeed. Indeed it does. Yeah. Oh, my God. So, I'm just going to ask this because I don't know. When you two were picked up on the way to Cuba, were you on a holiday or was it anything else?
I don't think I'm supposed to talk about that.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah.
That's no problem. I understand. But then once Marty was picked up, taken to detention in Miami, this really started a whole nother ordeal, didn't it? It exposed him to the penal system and the behavior of the Bureau of Prisons and the U.S. Marshals and the U.S. Department of Justice. And he's done all he's done all he can to get word out about that. And he also endured a very lengthy hunger strike. And that was motivated just from his determination? Nothing else?
Yeah. Well, that has two goals. One was for Carmen Ortiz, who's resigned on the last day of his hunger strike, actually, to back off going after activists. He saw what she did to Aaron. He saw what she was doing to him, and he wants to take a stand because somebody has to do it. Somebody has to will say, I won't take this laying down. That's one way. And then another thing, and I don't want to say what was bigger, what was more important, but I know that it was really important to him to make it about kids. Originally, it was aimed at the president-elect, and then it changed over time as the president was elected. But to protect kids from institutional abuse. That was what he was raising awareness for. And institutional abuse includes what happened to Justina at Boston Children's, but it also includes other types of facilities like residential treatment centers, like he was fighting for at Logan River Academy, rehab centers, basically anywhere where the abuse of children is not coincidental, but it's part of the framework, it's part of the fabric of the institution. So it's not a surprise and not something that's punishable, but something that can be expected. So he wrapped that hunger strike up on January 11th, and he did, out of the 100-day hunger strike, he spent 80 of those days in solitary confinement at MCC New York, which has been nicknamed Little Guantanamo. Actually, when El Chapo was moved here from Mexico right before the inauguration, he was moved to MCC New York. He was just one floor above Marty.
So it's a high-profile facility, without a doubt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been written up a bunch. There's definitely a renewed interest when El Chapo moved there, but the Daily Mail covered Marty at the facility. I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago. They did a pretty in-depth article about conditions there based on a lot of Marty's writings.
Well, now that I'm looking over some stuff here, yes, true enough. I should have been more aware of that. Marty indeed did go on the hunger strike because it was election season and because he figured that was a good time to bring this to public attention, which I guess is also why he thought it was a good time to do what he did when it was the donation time for the Boston Children's Hospital. But I'm just trying to find it. I just saw it a minute ago here, where he had a statement where he said, he asks fellow citizens to join my wife and I in demanding a pledge from every presidential candidate to both work with legislators and to direct executive law enforcement action to protect our nation's most vulnerable and frequently marginalized youth, so that no future child ever has to endure the torture that Justina Pelletier and countless thousands of others have, in most cases, suffered in silence. Now that's a noble statement right there. And that makes it clear exactly why he did what he did. And he started on October 3rd, and it went on into January. I must say, Dana, your husband has a great deal of fortitude.
Definitely. Definitely. Yeah.
That is amazing. He's a very, very, he believes in his morals, to put it lightly. That is outstanding. How has he been recovering?
He's been okay. He stayed on the liquid diet for a while. After a long time without food, you can't make such a quick transition. He was told that he would continue to get supplemental nutrition to help him recover from it, and they're not giving it to him. After he finished the hunger strike, they moved him to, a while after, they moved him to Plymouth County Jail. Back in Massachusetts, they took him out of New York and moved him to Massachusetts. And I know he's lost a lot of muscle mass, so you can definitely see the physical changes in his body. He used to be pretty buff. I mean, he's like not a big dude or anything, but he definitely very sport and workout intensive youth, and it just kind of stayed with him, and I think a lot of that is gone. But that's physically, and mentally he's pretty tough. He knows what he's doing. He knows what the goals are, and it gives him a lot of strength. He really feels that kids have been suffering for too long, and we have to do something. We have to do something about it, and it's worth taking risks for. So worth taking risks for.
The determination to do so for others. As you spoke earlier about what America means or what it's supposed to mean, then considering the madness of current events in the country to the south of mine, I say that Martin Gottesfeld is a true American. This guy's willing to stand for those who need to be stood for. Absolutely outstanding.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm pretty proud of him.
As well you should be.
Yeah. One of the things that we're doing for him is we're having one of the ways we're going to celebrate him is we're going to have a Marty party. That's going to be kind of take things in a lighter note. A lot of this stuff is pretty heavy, but we're going to have a day to celebrate some of the better things and just have a good time talking about him and bring some levity to this, like, otherwise very heavy issue.
Yeah, we can get to the Marty party. I just wanted to ask you first, now that he has been formally charged and discovery is ongoing, and I understand that there's absolutely reams of data that have been turned over in discovery, which is going to delay things even further, which I'm sure the U.S. Attorney's Office has absolutely no problem with. No problem. They've got all the time in the world. Is there any idea when this may actually come to trial yet?
I don't have a date to tell you. I don't think one has been picked out yet. Yeah, it's just in discovery at the moment.
Will it be in 2017? Hopefully.
I just don't have an answer.
Okay.
They haven't decided. Yeah, sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. I understand. I mean, I did read that there were terabytes of data, which seems absolutely ridiculous to me from this entire situation. How can there be? But, we're talking about the government. I imagine 80% of it is not going to mean anything. But they're just going to turn it all over and say, here you go through it, you find what you think's important. Meanwhile, they already have. They already have the 10% of it picked out that they're going to use. So this is more like a time waster and a distraction tactic at the same time for the defense. And in a case like this, defense will not come cheap. Is that an understatement?
Well, we moved away from our private attorney and we picked up a public defender. And in that way, it's not as expensive, but there is definitely a lot of costs associated with the case in terms of helping Marty makes sure he gets commissary and phone time and raising awareness about what's going on. I am always surprised how many fees there are to everything. Do you want to take a guess at what the prison charges per minute for a phone call?
I would guess probably about $12 a minute.
It certainly feels that way. No, it's like 21 cents a minute.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, so it's a bargain at that rate. Yeah.
See, I was thinking Canadian telecommunication costs. That's why I was so high.
It got you 12. Oh, were you being serious? It got you $12.
Well, Canada does have the highest data rates in the world, and none of us like it, but we're stuck with it. Yeah, it's a good racket up here.
I don't know about that. Or however Canada works, I don't know.
But the bottom line is, funds are necessary to keep Marty in contact with you and the rest of the outside world. I'm sure for his commissary, for the hours and hours that it's going to take to go through all this discovery. The bottom line is, it takes a bit of money, right? I mean, there's no way around that, and that is part of the system. They make sure that it costs you money.
Oh yeah.
In every step.
We already put in most of our money to our first lawyer, so it's not like we didn't pay for it. So that really drained our funds. Then we moved to a public defender. But yeah, there's fees at every turn. It's incredibly expensive.
Okay. Well, Saturday, March 18th is the day of the Marty party. Now, it's not fully filled out yet, the details, but this is what we have so far. It will be an all-day event. The official start time will be announced at a later date. It will be on that venerable old platform, Tiny Chat. That's enough to interest a lot of people in the chat already, I know that. The purpose is for donations for Marty's legal fund. Now, the Master of Ceremonies for the Marty party will be Stiletto Supermom, who is a internet radio podcaster, YouTuber, who is very popular. And I've watched her show. She looks at motherhood from quite a unique perspective, and she is very well known in her circles. There will also be a special appearance by Jason Hitch from the reality show A 90-Day Fiancé. And Jason has read about Marty's case and wanted to help out. Now, there are several commitments already from artisan types for items for raffle that will be available throughout the event. Organizers are still looking for another Master of Ceremonies and moderators for the chat room, because we all know what the chat on TC can get like, and more items for donation. But, as the organizers have told me, the best way to support is to show up and have a good time and discuss all the good things about Marty and donate to help the cause. Now, does that pretty much sum it up, what we know to this point about the Marty party?
Yeah, I think it's just going to be a fun day, raffle and hanging out and getting to come in and meet other people, maybe some people that you wouldn't have known otherwise, get to meet a community. And I think it sounds like it's going to be a pretty good time. If anybody wants to donate, or help with organizing, there's certainly opportunities. There's a Twitter account, a Twitter handle called Marty Party 2017, and that's kind of the central spot for organizing if anybody wants to, as we said, donate or help promote. There's lots of opportunities. We already have some raffle items already lined up, but we're always happy to get new ones that'll help make it an even better time.
Absolutely. And while we're on the subject, for anybody out there who wants to know the complete story about Marty, there's a website, www.freemartyg.com. On Twitter, at FreeMartyG, and also at Marty Party 2017. There's also a pretty damn good Facebook page, facebook.com/FreeMartyG. So you are using social media to get this out there, which makes a whole lot of sense. Has the feedback from the public been good?
Yeah, I think a lot of people can identify with having been on the victim's end of types of things that Marty is fighting against. I think, well, I don't want to speak for people, but from what I understand, they're appreciative to see somebody standing up and taking a stand, especially that Marty hasn't personally been a part of some of the systems that he's fighting against. Like he's not a personal victim of the Department of Children and Families, but like Child Protective Services unit in Massachusetts, and he hasn't been held in a psych ward or had his loved one there, but still taking a stand. And I think people admire that about him, and are happy to see somebody really stand up and fight.
Absolutely. Like I said, I mean, all this rhetoric, all this talk that there's been in the United States in the last year about what an American is. Well, when I think about an American, I think about somebody like Martin Gottesfeld, who is defending people against the system, against the wrongs that are being allowed to go on indefinitely because there's money involved, because there's power involved. That's not what it's supposed to be about. And, again, when Princess Stepford came to me and said, would you be interested in doing a show about FreeMartyG? I said, you goddamn right. Because what he's doing, what he's done, and what he's now having to go through is unfortunately something that goes from one end of American history to the other. It's about the individual fighting the system. And in my opinion, being from outside the borders of the United States, that's something I identify with, being as American as apple pie and baseball and all that other bullshit. Because that's what everybody's told everywhere around the world. In America, you have rights. Everybody has rights. And if they're not being granted, they're not being respected, you fight for those rights. And that's exactly what he's doing for others. And, I just want to say, if there's, he's fully deserving of all the support that he can get and more. And you as well, Dana. I'm sure this has not been a walk in the park for you. And, you too. I wish you all the support and assistance that you deserve out there. And hopefully, for once, there will be a different outcome of a CFAA prosecution, and the right things will be addressed for a change.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm also hoping for those good things.
It just continues to baffle me that. I mean, it must be very hard too for Americans themselves, because this is what they're taught. This is what they've been told, that this is the way their country works. People can't pull this shit, but yet it's happening, and it continues to happen. And I mean, if you want to be honest, you can call it pragmatic, you can call it pessimistic, you can call it what you want, but somehow I don't think this kind of thing is just going to stop. So anyone who takes the system on like this is deserving of all the support, respect, and help that the rest of us out here in the community can give them.
Thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Now, I get the feeling that it may be time that we've pretty much gone through the timeline. Marty did release his third open letter to authorities and the public last week. I have an audio clip of Marty reading that letter. Is this the time we should play that?
Yeah, I think that sounds good. There's just one more thing I wanted to say really quickly.
Sure.
I think there's, like when a campaign organizes, there's a lot of ways that people can help, and if they're not interested in participating in the Free Marty Party, or if they would and they'd like to get involved in other ways as well, we're really happy to have people join FreeMartyG on social media, on Twitter and Facebook, and we have Twitter storms on Sundays at 1 p.m. And those are all great ways that if money isn't within your means, there's definitely still ways to support or contact us for volunteer opportunities. Always a lot to do.
Indeed. I know that for a fact. I will agree with that 100%. There's always something that can be done. And
also
help.
It takes so many types. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that this whole thing crosses a lot of lines as well. I don't see why politics should be an issue with what's going on here. I don't see why social class should be an issue with what's going on here. This is about children. And this is about children being abused. How can anyone not support this? It doesn't make much sense to me. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Now, this letter came out on February... Oh, geez, I'm not sure. 13th, was it?
Mm-hmm.
February
right.
13th? Yeah, sounds about right. Okay. And this is Marty reciting it on a phone call from the Plymouth Center. Is that correct?
I think so.
Okay. This is almost 8 minutes. This is Marty himself reading his open letter to authorities and to the public. Dana, I'll just put you on hold while I play this.
Okay.
And here is Marty himself.
David Hung, Acting Director, U.S. Marshals. Dr. Candace Sloan, Chair of the Massachusetts Board of Registration and Medicine. Governor Charlie Baker, and Massachusetts Attorney General Healy. When I was first arrested and remanded to the U.S. Marshals a year ago, I expected quite a journey through the federal justice system. Still, nothing could have prepared me for the actual odyssey ahead. After starting out by spending a couple weeks at FTC Miami, followed by a week at the Federal Transfer Center in Oklahoma City, my second flight on Con Air landed me at MDC Brooklyn. There, packed into a tiny holding cell, two members of rival street gangs quickly discovered each other among the rest of us dozen or so human sardines, and a brutal fistfight broke out in a tightly enclosed space. Then, after being moved to a housing unit, I found myself sleeping right next to a cell that seems perpetually cordoned off by crime scene tape. What exactly happened in there and how long ago those events transpired are sources of speculation, controversy, and gossip among federal inmates across the Northeast. The prison equivalent of campfire stories. I didn't tell my wife about the altercation nor the mystery cell at the time, as I didn't want to worry her. Though much of the facility was in an obvious state of disrepair, I wasn't at MDC Brooklyn long enough to run into the grave issues recently uncovered there by journalists. Nor did I know that late last year, a judge would refuse to order a defendant held there pending trial, but rather would summon the local U.S. attorney to answer for its squalid conditions. Instead, I boarded a bus, shackled and chained as we always are, bound for the private Donald W. Wyatt Detention Facility in Rhode Island. I would spend the next 9 months at Wyatt, where I would begin my 100-day hunger strike on behalf of abused children and victims of political prosecutions, like the late Aaron Swartz. Before I arrived, I was already aware of the ACLU's detailing of the tragic abuse and preventable death of fellow technologist and whistleblower Jason Ng at the facility. I also knew that underpaid and overworked officers had sued Wyatt over unfair employment practices. Like Ng, I had to fight much too hard to go to the hospital. And worse yet, my attorneys were told I had not requested such care, when in fact I had done so repeatedly, even on video. All of that being said, I'm compelled to note that while there certainly were bad apples, the vast majority of officers and nurses at Wyatt were the most conscientious and kind that I've encountered on my journey thus far. I view the problems at Wyatt as predominantly the result of poor management, as well as a callous, substandard medical director by the name of Dr. Blanchett, who seems to think he can touch patients on video without their consent, and then laugh at and mock their objections to his unwanted behavior. I left Wyatt 6 weeks into my hunger strike without knowing that an inmate with a history of being lugged to solitary for trivial offenses would soon effect a successful escape and elude authorities for days. While the marshals dealt with that embarrassment and worked to clean up that mess, I was at the Federal Bureau of Prisons, FBOP, MCC New York facility in Manhattan. There, in a blatant attempt to break my hunger strike, I was placed directly into solitary confinement upon arrival. Contrary to policy, as well as in violation of my civil rights, I was never given an administrative detention hearing, periodic review, nor even an administrative detention order. Still, compared to many others, I was fortunate. For example, during my 80-plus days in the hole, I encountered a mentally ill man who I was told had spent approximately the last 2 years in near-total isolation, suffering silently. I reported on the inexcusable conditions at MCC New York, where freighted cells, insect as well as rodent infestations, contaminated food, and sadistic staff, multiple times. I had no idea Amnesty International had already condemned the place, and I believe if judges were to see what I have there, the U.S. Attorney would once more be summoned to answer for inexcusable conditions. I was moved again just as my reporting was making a difference, and right as I was about to expose how favored FBOP employees, my current MCC New York warden, Escart Tatum, are transferred there prior to retirement for just long enough to allow the exorbitant Manhattan salaries to artificially boost their already generous government pensions at taxpayer expense. So, on Saturday, February 4th, I found myself at Plymouth County Correctional Facility, lying on the floor on a thin, lumpy mattress, unable to sleep, having been placed on a completely unjustified suicide watch. I asked for writing paper or a book to pass the time, but was told I wasn't allowed to have, quote, anything. I said the mattress was hurting me due to my many past injuries, but was told nothing could be done. When I was, quote, cleared 48 hours later, I looked like a sleep-deprived raccoon and had never seen a doctor, as one should expect prior to the termination of a legitimate, non-punitive suicide watch. I was told the reason for this treatment was that I was, quote, coming off the hunger strike. But as announced by the Associated Press, I had begun eating solid food more than 3 weeks before, on January 11th. Now, a week later, I still haven't been seen by a doctor, and this entire time I've been without the supplemental nutrition I was medically prescribed, and which was helping me regain weight and lean body mass. Still, I would soon learn that I was fortunate compared to others here, who had actually requested mental health help, only to be thrown in the Plymouth County Sheriff's Department's Q5. Described to me as a small 40-degree room with a bare tile floor. Inmates are locked in Q5 alone, naked or nearly naked, and without a mattress. As an additional indignity, there is no toilet in Q5. It is said inmates must defecate in a hole in the floor. Human beings endure these deplorable conditions for days, never receiving therapy, before they are asked if they still need help. Anyone who answers that they do is held there longer. As for the intended purpose of Q5, I believe one prisoner hit the nail on the head when he told me, "It doesn't make me want to ask for help." He said if he was thinking of hurting himself, he wouldn't tell a soul for fear of Q5. I don't blame him. I wouldn't either, and that appears to be exactly the point, to discourage inmates from seeking mental health treatment. Another gentleman told me there were dead flies on the floor when he was in Q5, and that, like the cliche tongue on a frozen flagpole, the frigid temperatures had actually adhered his exposed skin to the floor. He said it was torture. From what I've heard, according to the International Convention, he is right. You see, there are 4 requirements for something like Q5 to rise to the level of torture by accepted standards. First, it must cause severe pain or suffering, whether physical or mental. Second, it must be done intentionally. Third, it must be carried out for a specific purpose, like coercion, intimidation, discrimination, or punishment. Finally, there must be involvement, if only by acquiescence, of a government official, like a prison employee. It is self-evident that the descriptions of Q5 above meet all 4 of these criteria. And so, as has happened previously along my journey, I am left to ask questions of the utmost urgency. Do the U.S. Marshals have not one sufficient detention facility in all of the Northeast? Remembering that we are innocent unless proven guilty, do the Marshals care about our health and well-being once they've handed us off to the lowest bidders? Does the Massachusetts Board of Registration in Medicine take its duties seriously enough to intervene in cases of institutionalized abuse, like what happened to Justina Pelletier in 2013 to 2014, and what is happening now at the Plymouth County Correctional Facility? Will the current iteration of the executive branch of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts turn a blind eye, as its predecessors have done? I'll leave it to you to answer these questions, not by mere words, but by your much louder actions and or inactions. Very sincerely, Marty G. Gottesfeld.
Thank you for using Global Telling.
Okay.
Wow.
Thanks for playing that.
My pleasure. That is powerful. And I would like to know, has there been any official response from any of the people you mentioned that letter was sent to? Has there been any word from the state of Massachusetts, from the Bureau of Prisons, from the U.S. Marshals, anybody? Has anybody said boo about it?
None of those groups for this letter. The previous letters have gotten a response from the Attorney General's office, or I believe it's the Office of the Inspector General. The response to this letter has been that the jail started cleaning. Everybody in the unit that he was in has gotten sick because of somebody threw up on like the food, and they made the prisoners eat it anyways, or near the food anyways. So the unit got a big scrub down, and the prisoners started to get taken to the doctor. They got to see the health professional there. So it's definitely been made a difference in the life of the prisoners. Obviously not always want more results, bigger and better, but these people weren't getting to see a doctor beforehand, and were living in conditions that were making them sick. So those are some nice improvements. And
well, there we go.
He's going to continue to write. He feels very strongly that it's important to bring human rights violations to the forefront and not wait. I think one of the things he said about writing about all this stuff is that they can take away his keyboard, but it only makes his pen stronger.
Absolutely. And, just like he said, this sort of torture happens to Justina Pelletier, and it's happening to all these people who are, according to the Constitution, innocent until proven guilty. But yet it goes on. People should really question their republic and what it stands for. Well, we do have somebody who wants to come on. I think I know who it is. We'll see. Hello. Hello, you're on.
Hello.
Cactus. Welcome to the show.
I just had to join in and say that you and Dana are doing freaking awesome. And I can't imagine what Dana's going through, and thank you, Canadian Glenn, for doing all this. It means a lot to us, and I'm sure it means a lot to everybody. But Dana, just wanted to say that is awesome. I know you've been on air forever, and you did an awesome job of explaining everything. I don't know how you're handling explaining everything and going through what you're doing.
Well, thank you so much. I think explaining things is like one of the best things I can do. So that fits hand in hand, but that means a lot. Thank you.
Well, actually, I just wanted to jump in and say, from my viewpoint as a host, you're not the first guest who said that, Dana. They do find that spreading the word and telling the story over and over again is somehow therapeutic. So I'm glad I could help in that regard.
Yeah, definitely. More than therapeutic, I just want to get Marty's story out there, knowing that it's going to be most likely blocked in court. The more that we can help promote it, I think the better chances he'll have. So the more that we can get people to listen and share and understand what's going on, I think the better off we'll be able to help Marty. So that's what I'm hoping. Rolling Stone has written an article that's going to be coming out in the next few months, and Vice is working on an article about different quote hackers in American prisons, and Rolling Stone will be a feature length about Marty, and we're continuing to see more coverage, and we'll stick with the Huffington Post and keep moving forward from there. But there's lots of good things coming down the pipe. And so that, and combined with volunteers and social media, is really creating a nice snowball for sure.
Right on. Go ahead, Bert.
Well, yeah, no, the whole Rolling Stone thing's definitely awesome. And the fact that he's spending his time in prison, let alone fucking solitary, writing articles and open letters and exposing the conditions that him and probably hundreds of other people are going through is just, it's freaking unbelievable that he's able to get the word out, and that's just amazing. I'm glad he's able to do that, and you're able to help spread the word, and anything we can do is definitely, we're out there to help.
Thank you. Yeah, at the last prison, he was able to use the open letters, and he got somebody out of solitary confinement who had been there for 2 years. The guy had mental, or he didn't have the capacity to, he needed a TB test, and he was waiting for a doctor. And the doctor just didn't visit him. They just neglected him. And after Marty's second open letter ran, the doctor finally went to see him, and he was moved to a mental health facility. So, talking and sharing and stuff are making real differences in real people's lives. And so that's like, it's nice to get that kind of feedback, to see achievements, to see like it's not a waste of time that he's there, and it's like, you know, the things we do, like even if though we don't always see the connections and draw all the conclusions, like people are being helped along the way. So thanks for sharing and joining the show and listening and participating. I think it's all going to have an impact.
Yeah, no, just him getting the voice out from people that normally, you know, there's hardly any way for anybody in there to get their voice out to the internet, and the internet can multiply the voice 1,000 times, and that's just amazing what he's doing, and that's awesome that he just a second open letter has done that. So he's still making a difference, even though he's in a really crappy situation, and that's why we want to help you. And I don't know. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, right on. We managed to use up to 2 hours, Dana. I knew we would.
Yeah, it went a lot faster than I would have thought.
That's something else that every guest always says. Everybody's intimidated with 2 hours. Yeah, everybody always says, I don't know, 2 hours is a long time. But then when it's done, they're like, oh, that didn't seem so long. Right
No, it really didn't. Yeah.
Okay, well, FreeMartyG.com, on Twitter @FreeMartyG, Facebook.com/FreeMartyG, Marty Party 2017 on Twitter. That will be March 18th. There will be more details coming. You said you will keep writing in HuffPo, is that correct?
Yeah, Marty and I each have separate accounts.
No.
But we have more articles to post for sure.
Alrighty, but I'm sure that anything that comes out you'll be able to find it by going to FreeMartyG.com, right?
Yeah, and following us, we post new stuff on our Twitter and Facebook as well to keep up with the live stream and information.
Right on. I think we've covered anything. Is there anything you would like to say to close, Dana?
I just want to thank you so much for having me on the show and for letting me talk about these important issues and helping us give Marty a voice. I really appreciate it. And thank you to everyone who's joined and who's listening and participating in the discussion online. Thanks.
Well, it was my pleasure. That's what I do this show for, to make a difference, to try. And with that, I'm sure you are very busy, and I know it's getting late enough where you are, so I will thank you for being on the show, Dana. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care.
All right. Good night. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh, come on.
What?
You know I'm an overtime guy.
Well, yeah, we're in
OT now. She left,
now.
and that's all right. But
well, she hasn't hung up yet. She's still on hold.
Well, Dana's just awesome, and I had the pleasure of speaking with her. And I don't know, I had a couple of questions on a sticky note here to ask her, but I don't know. I get nervous, and I'm kind of out of the usual here. But thank you, Glenn, for doing this whole show. Thank you.
No problem. Like
and
I said,
know,
when Princess asked me, I said certainly, no problem.
Hell yeah. And I know she loves the hell out of you for doing it. And yeah. She'll scold everybody that didn't show up here later.
Well, I understand.
It was well done.
I understand she had to work tonight anyway.
Yeah, she's at work. I signed her on, but yeah, she's getting off work here right now. So, but yeah, no, thank you, and that was freaking awesome. Thanks for asking about the boat stuff. I guess they can't talk about it, but that I can't wait to laugh about it after Marty's free. He covered the prison conditions, like the dead flies. You covered what we can do. The lawyer status, like I don't know. I'm gonna call the NLG and be like, hey, what the fuck? Why is he having a public defender here? Like, he should have a pro bono, like, pro lawyer on the East Coast right now. And yeah, that I'm sure he is a beefcake. Like, he's missing Dana, I'm sure. But I'm glad he's spending his time in prison, like, doing awesome things.
Well, I
so
mean,
that covers my list. Thank you, Glenn.
I did see it come up in the chat. Somebody had mentioned, where's the EFF? Where's the ACLU? You know, like, where are these organizations? Why are they not supporting Marty? I know it was a problem for us back in 2011. Like, I literally, nobody would answer my calls, and I was free. I wasn't in prison. Like, I bet it's even harder in prison. Yeah. And finally, luckily, I was the one person that was nice to Barrett Brown, and Barrett Brown called the NLG, and next thing I know, 10 minutes later, the NLG is calling me. But, like, I don't know. They should have a pro bono lawyer in Massachusetts, like, easy. Like, it's a highly populated area. Like, it's not rural fucking Colorado. Like, yeah, and there's a huge circuit court there too. I mean, and it's been there for over 200 fucking years.
Yeah, they're a fucking original colony. Like, I'm sorry for the cussing. It's late. But yeah.
We're an OT.
Yeah, that's good. But no, that was an amazing show. Like, I was even worried about you guys covering the 2 hours, but you and Dana did fucking freaking awesome. And that got so much info out that I'm gonna share it as much as I can, even though I don't know, most of my friends are trolls, so like Nick Nack over there acting in a safe space.
Devil. Speak of the devil. He's on the board, but he hasn't pressed one. So I don't know what kind of
he's enjoying his safe space. I know it's been a while since we've talked, and I probably offended him with my Donald Trump talk, and I don't know. I think the Justina case is like one of the few that it reached all political parties. Like, you shouldn't fuck with children. Like, no matter what your beliefs are, it's not okay.
And even,
I mean, you shouldn't test on children to prove something. Like,
well, especially when it's about getting federal grant money. That's what really pisses me off.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, how is that any different
if we can prove this is all psychological, then we'll get all this money. It's like, yeah, but what if it's not? We're, like, totally hurting this teenage chick. Or killing her.
I mean,
like,
how different is it from the animal lab experiments, really?
Yeah, and
you know?
Everybody's all against that, which I am too. You can't have consent, obviously, and if the state takes custody of you, which is totally blown out of proportion in the United States, I'm sure you kind of know. But once the state takes custody of you, you're pretty much an object. You're not a person. You're a statistic in something. And
you're being used by somebody else.
Yeah, you're something to be tested, and well, if that doesn't work, then we'll just go on to the next one. And I don't know. That's not how it should work. But
I agree.
I don't know. I
agree.
You did awesome, Glenn. So
thanks, man. But I mean,
and
know,
you
like
filled
you mentioned,
2 hours with awesome info.
Well, like you mentioned about this shouldn't affect politics, and that's the thing that, I mean, I've been watching what's been going on down there for over a year now, since the cycle started, and it still hasn't ended. But how could anyone who is just a politician stay away from something like the harming of children?
Yeah.
With
it's
all the bullshit
win.
that they make,
like,
yeah, with all the bullshit that they make,
it doesn't matter what
political
party you're with, like, no matter what, if you say this is harming children, pretty much you have support unitedly. And I don't know, maybe that will sink into somebody's mind, especially since it's in Massachusetts, like,
it's a liberal state.
The East Coast by D.C. Yeah, I know, but it's all the coastal, like, the original colonies, like, and I'm in the actual middle of America. My state went blue, even though I'm kind of a red-leaning guy, but everybody doesn't want to harm children. Like, that should be, like, built into the moral code of being a human being. And, like, anybody could win defending that if they stood up against this freaking psychologist that's not an MD and all the rest that you mentioned earlier. Like, it's how did they get control of somebody's child, like, just to experiment? And the experimenting harmed the child, but somehow that was okay.
Well, I mean, I never got to the fact of it, but I mean, in one of the articles that Marty himself wrote, Boston Children's Hospital got over $1 million in fees for what they did to Justina Peltier. Like,
yeah.
What the fuck, man?
that
and they didn't even want to give her up.
Yeah. It was definitely the pressure, and like I said, I'm a right-leaning guy, and it was fully on all the radio that I listened to 3 years ago. Like, it was, everybody on my side was against it, everybody on their side was against it, but somehow it was okay because, yeah, it was like the ends justify the means, and I'm sorry, that's still just not okay. Like,
I agree, and I mean, even the House reps who introduced Justina's law, there's 2 Democrats and a Republican. So I mean, this is across the aisle in the House. So what's the fucking holdup? Let's go. Get it done.
I know it's the same as Aaron's law. Like, Aaron's law never got passed. I think it was the same congresswoman from California, and somehow they won't amend the CFAA, which probably would have helped Marty in the end. They I don't know, they want to be able to threaten people that talk about the truth into silence, which isn't supposedly the American way or anybody's democratic way. Like, I don't know. It's got me in a thing, and I don't know. We've gotten a couple of letters from Marty here because Princess Stefford does freaking amazing at prison support, and he's I don't know. Just the way he's fighting is just amazing. I don't know. I don't think I could do it in prison. Like, I'd probably subside to the everything inside. But he's doing awesome. And
yeah, like I said, your husband's got a lot of fucking guts. I didn't say it in those words, but that's what I meant. I mean,
yeah.
This guy
calling out
everybody.
Calling out everybody that is actually having control over you. Like, if they read that or whatever, they can punish him. And they do, obviously. Like solitary, the hunger strike, like, they were going to force feed him, like, and he's still trying to stand up for what's right. And that's amazing. Like, I don't know. I don't think I could be as strong as him when our shit was going down if I was in prison. Like, they probably would have broke me. But he is doing awesome. And that amazes me every time I see the next thing that he does. Like, he writes open letters, and I don't know. You know that every guard there, the warden probably hates him, and I don't know. Well, it's amazing.
Well, just what he said in his open letter, it's like anybody who asks for help gets thrown in the hole. So who yes
Makes
means
you not
no.
Want to ask for help. Yeah.
Yes means
it's like, oh, you're going to ask for help?
Anything?
Here you go.
Yeah, we'll make it worse because you actually trusted us and said, yes, you want help. Well, fuck you. In the shoe you go. Unbelievable.
Yeah, you want to complain about how bad this is? Oh, we'll show you what bad is. Like, that'll stop you from complaining. Like, and it's just amazing.
I think it's a very low percentage of the American public that understands how brutal and dehumanizing their prisons are. I mean, listening to Marty read his letter, I thought of Midnight Express.
Yeah.
Because that's the kind of shit that's supposed to happen in Turkey or in fucking Mongolia.
Yeah, some third world country where
nobody gives a flying fuck. But no, it's in Massachusetts.
Yeah,
wow.
And no, not even to compare it to anything Marty's gone through. But I was the only one of the 14 to spend a night in federal detention, and just in that night I was confronted by the Aryans asking if I had done something pedophilia, which I didn't. I watched a guy pull his tooth out in his room because the medical staff wouldn't pay attention to him. I had to sit there and sleep in my bed with 12 other people in the same room and listen to each one of them take a crap whenever they wanted to when we were in lockdown. And that was just in 24 hours. He's been in fucking prison for a year. Like, it is amazing. Like, and that's without being proven guilty of a crime. This is just by being, hey, well, you're suspected of this. You gotta endure this entire process until we can get you to trial. And it's, I don't know, the whole idea of innocent until proven guilty now is just blown out of the water, because before they even had an identity trial of me to prove that I am who they named in the warrant, like, I was strip searched with 3 other dudes in the same room naked. Like, it's just, it's unhumane. Like, our process has gone down the fucking hole, and I hope Canada's different, but there is no innocent until proven guilty. Like, once you're charged, you are a warden of the state, obviously.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's unbelievable. Well, I don't see any of these.
Sorry for ranting.
Oh, no. I was just going to say, well, it looks like none of these other pussies will press 1, and guess what happens?
Hola,
good evening.
Who is it?
Welcome to OT.
Hey, Glenn, aren't Canadian, like, free speech laws or whatever the fuck they're called? Isn't it worse in Canada? Like, we don't even have free speech or any amendment like that.
What? What are you trying to start here?
I'm just saying, in terms of, like, free speech or whatever the fuck you want to call it. We don't even have a constitution or like any free speech laws. Isn't it worse? Like if you say any types of hate speech or whatever, isn't it worse in Canada than the States?
No. The only difference in Canada is we have federal libel laws and slander laws. That's it.
Yeah.
But those are crimes against an individual. As far as racial or orientation hate speech goes, the laws have been getting weaker in Canada for the last 20 years.
Really? So what about like cybercrime bullshit? Isn't it is that still is it the same punishment like on par as the US or is it?
Well, we don't have anything as specific as the CFAA, but I mean what we seem to be seeing in Canada all the time is it doesn't matter what they bust anybody with as far as a cybercrime goes, they will turn it into terrorism and then you will be under C-51. Because they have this definition of the national interest, which means anything under the fucking sun. So if they can put those two words on your charges, then you're under the Anti-Terrorism Act. It doesn't matter if you're hacking a school in your city, you know, like you got a problem with the fucking volleyball coach at your kid's high school. You break into that and they'll turn it into terror and you're under C-51. I think it's just one size fits all here and it's not a cool situation. But, you know, the mindset is the same. Don't fuck with us because we'll make you hurt. I think, you know, that's pretty much what you can take away from the CFAA or any other law in North America, especially if you go after a government site.
Please leave a message and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks. Bye.
That was interesting.
At the tone, please record your voice message. When you are finished recording, you may hang up or press pound for more options.
Yes, hello.
Hi, Vert. Hi, Vert. We're leaving you a voicemail while you're on the air. That's pretty wild. Okay, I muted him after that. Maybe his phone died or something. Well, it still shows him connected, but I don't know what the fuck that was about. Why did we get his voicemail if he's on the air? Weird.
Yeah, that was weird. Did you like auto dial him back or something?
No, nothing changed. I don't know. It's on his end. I think he uses Skype though, so that might have been the problem.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Weird. Hey, so I had another question for you. Has any president pardoned any person who's committed like a cyber crime or like big crime like that? Has there ever been a pardon for someone?
I don't know. Maybe Bill Clinton at the end.
Yeah?
Maybe. But I'm not sure because the CFAA is, 25 years old now? So, I mean, there's definitely room for that to have happened, but I don't know if it has. I know Obama did set the record for pardons and commutations when he left, so there may be one or two in there, but I have no idea.
Yeah. And he was big on letting people off for non-violent crime, and that would fall into that category. But it's funny how that never comes up. It's like in it's in its own special category.
Yeah, and that's exactly why in Canada they turn it into a terror crime.
Yeah.
You know, because then there's, well, it's terror. Of course it's meant to hurt people. Well, it's not terror, you fucking liars. But, they have their own definition.
And the other thing is, it's never brought up in discussions or debates, and no one seems to think it's a concern when the majority of society spends 80-90% of their day now looking at a screen or their phone or at work, accessing tons of information, and make one mistake or do something that you shouldn't do, or don't even know if it's legal or not legal, and you can land in some really, really hot water and be persecuted worse than lots of violent crimes. And
yes,
you don't even get you wouldn't even get a second chance. It's pretty much you're fucked for life.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I mean that just reflects what the real priorities are within the system. People think it's human life. Apparently not. Apparently not. I mean, like you said, you can do some computer crime. I mean, look at some of the people in the PayPal 14.
Yeah.
After the PayPal 13. I mean, they were just dummies sitting at home pressing F5. And they end up with the feds at their door threatening them with 20 years and 6 digits in fines, and for what?
Yeah, exactly.
But yet you can have some guy who gets hammered and kills 3 or 4 people on the road, or some guy who's just a lunatic and rapes and kills, and they'll be out long before the dude pressing F5.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's that famous case in Canada. I'm not sure if all the listeners would know about it, but that I think he comes from the richest family in Canada, and he got off his private jet from Vegas last year and got in his car and ran a red light and killed 3 people in a car, all from the same family. And what did he get, Glenn? I think he got 10 years. Probably will get a hearing. Yeah. And that was actually the most strict ruling in a long time that I've seen in Canada. But there's people that do way, way, way less than that, and either hack intentionally or even get information without doing really anything illegal. If you look at it, and they get worse fines or sentences. It's crazy.
Well, look what they tried to do to Barrett, and they finally had to back off. I mean, they wanted to give him 40 years for sharing a link.
Yeah, crazy.
I mean, in the end, they couldn't make it stick, but it's out there. They tried. They'll be back. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So
yeah.
I mean,
what did Weave do? He shared unsecured information that you literally just type in a URL that anybody could do in a browser, and got the information and shared it. So,
Well, again, that goes back to what I was saying. That goes back to what I was saying. There's so many systems out there that are like Swiss cheese, and just because you know how to use a computer, it's there. But it's your fault because you found their holes. You found their vulnerabilities. So it's your fault. That's ass backwards. Either build a system that can withstand attacks, or fuck you. Too bad. I mean, I've always, I'm no fucking wizard. I'm just a user. But as far as I'm concerned, if you get hacked, it's your fault. And that goes for the government, that goes for people, that goes for everybody. I mean, it's like you lock your door so you don't get ripped off. It's the same thing. But that's not the way it's prosecuted, especially when you walk through the open door of the government.
Yeah, and then that's what I was saying. We spend so much time on the web with all these devices, and you could easily come across something like that if you're looking, or if you're a journalist or some type of investigator or researcher, and there's no law protecting you. Yeah, exactly. And you literally will get sentences higher than people who murder or commit violent crimes. Yet we don't speak about it, or it's silent. So it also tells you how important that front is, the internet, information to governments or the people in power, how that is persecuted to the nth degree to them, because it's all about controlling information. It's a scary front, and we continue to not really talk about it. We talk about other petty things, or it's completely silenced. The laws there are just completely ridiculous. It's the Wild West, and you could be put away for the rest of your life for literally sharing a link.
Yeah. I'm asking Vert in chat what was with the voicemail. But he's still here. He's still here.
Yeah, and I
don't know if
just wanted to say again, reiterate.
What?
Is he?
Oh, yeah, okay. He says unmute him. Okay. You're back.
Yo.
We didn't know what the fuck was going on when we got your voicemail message.
Yeah, well, I was trying to call Princess, who has my phone, since she's off work now, to add her to the call, and it went to my voicemail, and I couldn't hang it up.
Oh,
so there's my voicemail. Everybody here.
Now it makes
Not
sense.
that everybody
now I get it.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I doxed myself with what everybody already knows. I'm Vincent Kershaw. I work for Fort Collins Landscaping, blah, blah, blah. Like, everybody already knows that, so that's whatever.
Confirmed.
Yeah, so I was just trying to call Princess. She's finally off of work, and she's going to love listening to your show, because you did awesome. And
oh, that's good.
Is that Nick Knack on the fucking line?
Yep.
Muted.
Yay, Nick Knack.
Unmuted.
Yeah, muted. I'm sorry. I may have had a couple of drinks tonight.
Oh no, he's just
Is that somebody playing the freaking noise? He is. He would. Stop messing with me when I'm drunk, Nick Knack.
Unmuted.
I missed you guys. Like, I don't know. I know I've had a lot of shit going on that I don't want to talk about, but Marty thing, like, that's definitely brought me out of being silent. And thank you, Glenn, for doing this shit, because that, I don't know, it's one hell of a good cause, as I'm sure you know from all your research, because you do great research before all your shows. Like,
yeah, oh yeah. I mean, there's absolutely no hesitation on my part. None at all. And we'll have to make sure that the Marty party is a kick-ass event.
Hell yeah, Marty party! And there's the
Glenn, can we do that party? Can we have it at your house?
Hey, what's up?
Hey, Princess.
She's home now.
Glenn never invites me over.
Okay.
No, sorry I missed everybody. I'm going to go back and listen to it again.
Well, there's no archive until we're done with what we're doing now, though, so you're still going to have to wait for a while.
Oh, yeah. We're okay with hanging out in OT right now.
Yay!
But Nick, you have to understand that this is a digital party. It's not actually at someone's house, man.
I want to come over, man. You never invite me.
Well, go to Pearson and get on a fucking plane.
All right, maybe I will.
Okay, well, just tell me when you're landing and I'll come get you.
All right, maybe I will.
That'd be good for a laugh, that's for sure. Don't fly Air Canada.
Will that invitation extend to all of we all invited to your house, Glenn?
If you land here, I'll come get you. Yes.
Okay, awesome.
Fair enough. I'm the one who doesn't have a passport. I'm the one who's not allowed in the U.S. So it's a one-directional type thing.
Yo, Bert.
Yo.
What kind of landscaping do you do?
We do everything except for maintenance. Like, we do new houses and we do renovations.
Like water features, like rock, like they make like stone porches and like stuff like that.
Cool. I did that for years, man. That was a good job. But I worked on a golf course.
Nice. Hell yeah. And let me know if there's an echo. Sorry, I had to unplug my mic because Princess got home.
No, fine. So who you got in mind? Well, I want to know who's in mind here besides Stiletto Supermom. Who's going to be the other MC?
I don't know. I'm waiting for somebody to volunteer. I'm just like begging everybody I know and calling in all the favors I may have and just, trying to send everybody as many messages as I can. And so hopefully somebody will get back to me. Are you volunteering?
Well, this is TC, and that means camera, so that's a problem.
Can't you just put like a big flame on your forehead across your whole thing, or like black it out?
Well, yeah, I can. I mean, I've got tape across my camera all the time, but I mean, isn't that kind of defeat the purpose?
So do I.
But I mean, if you're MCing,
you hacker.
If you're MCing, you should be visible. I mean, that's like watching the Academy Awards and there's a black stage and you just hear a voice. Doesn't really make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, show them movies.
Yeah, that's probably true. So if anybody knows anybody they can ask, like, please ask them. Because we're still getting that part worked out. Like, I mean, Stiletto's amazing and she's really entertaining and I'm obviously entertaining as hell. So, I mean, I would like to get, like, some more other, like, cool people, like maybe somebody that does some tricks, like they jump rope with their leg or they can give themselves a blowjob. I don't know. Like, it'd be cool to get some people on there with, like, some skills, some special skills. Juggling, I don't know.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, Ron Jeremy might be available.
Yeah, if you know anybody that, like, flame, people that spit fire or swallow swords or anything like that, like, tell them to hit me up.
Well, that does open up the field a bit, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, like, maybe we could, like, I don't know, like, I have a lot of ideas, like, not all of them are good, but, like, I have a lot of ideas, so I'm following up on those things, and, but it would be nice to have some kind of entertainment, I would like to see somebody do something.
Do you know a lot of people that can give themselves a blowjob?
No, I was watching a TV show, and I saw it the other day on this TV show. What TV show was it?
No.
I think it was like Workaholics or something. That show was really funny. Anyway, and I just like surely there's somebody out there that has like done that or like gotten some ribs removed so that they can do that. So they need to call me.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I wouldn't leave my house.
Who would? Nobody would. Everybody would end up, like, and then all of a sudden you wouldn't have a house because you weren't going to work, you weren't walking the dog, like all kinds of things, bad things could happen from that.
Yeah, it'd be really bad.
Exactly. So I don't know. But yeah, it'd be fun to get some different, like, I like all kinds of people, get some different type of people.
Damon is awesome.
That's cool. Yeah, I'm really excited. I'm really like, I was so mad I missed it, and it was so lame at work today. I was just like, I hate it here. And like, but it was cool. I did have somebody come into work that like they were doing some kind of like Wiccan ritual or spirit cooking or something. I don't know what the hell they were doing. And they were like, I know this is weird, but like I need something that I can put all over myself and my body that's made out of charcoal or clay. And then they were trying to explain to me like this weird shit that they were doing. Like it was, I don't know what it was. And I'm just like, oh my God. Like, I don't know.
Sounds pagan.
So, yeah, I couldn't tell what it was, but I'm just like, what the heck is that? Like, I don't know what you want. But
like, we should do spirit cooking at the party. That'd be cool.
Like, does anybody actually do that? Like, I mean, I read about it, but I'm like, who actually does that? Oh my God, we should get somebody to do some spirit cooking at the party.
Yeah, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole.
That would be different, right?
Yeah, that might also draw a knock on the door.
Yeah, we want people to attend. We don't want people to leave. Maybe you're right.
Oh, I don't know. I don't have demographic analytics for that sort of thing, so I can't tell you if it would be a plus or a minus.
Yeah. I don't know. May have to look into it.
I think Marty would love it.
I think Marty's too classy for that.
Okay, what else we got? Nick, anything else?
No, I'm good.
Okay, because I'm thinking the sooner it's over, the sooner the archive gets processed, and then the sooner Princess can listen to the show.
That's very true.
Cool, man.
And
good show.
All right.
That was very good. You guys did awesome. Let's get some awesome exit music, and Princess is naked now, so.
Shut up. You rock, man. Thank you. I'm really excited to hear it.
Song.
Okay, no problem. I hope you like the show. That was a hint for music. I mean, when this gets converted to YouTube, we'll just have to edit the fucking music out anyway. But that's fine. We can play something for the BTR
Thank you,
crowd.
Glenn.
You rock, Glenn.
No problem, man. Okay, thank you guys for coming on. Okay, that's it. You're going to get muted now. I'm going to come up with a tune, and we're going to end this shit. You done too? You done?
Yeah.
All right, thanks, man. Okay, well, a short song won't take much to edit, but it's a wish for Marty. FreeMartyG, Marty Party, March 18th. Thank you for listening to The View Up Here. We'll see you next week. Good night.